And here we are, another Saturday on Doctor2Doctor in the chat room. And I am so happy to be back another Saturday to share this hour with you and have you share it with me. Got something crazy going on with my screen today. But anyway, we're still here and we're glad to be here. Hope you guys are doing well. Hope that you are taking care of yourselves in this heat. Oh, the mighty heat. I tell you, this heat has been something, but I would much rather endure the heat than endure the cold. So, as they say, we can never really be truly satisfied. We always got something to complain about, but I'm just glad to be here, and I am so glad that you are here. Today, we have another relevant topic for you. Let's talk about our youth and what's going on with our youth. It's a lot going on in the world, as we already know. There's been an uptick in crime. The numbers show that the number of delinquent charges against juveniles just in the Memphis and Shelby County area alone increased 30.3% in 2022 from the year before. And this is according to the Memphis and Shelby County Crime Commission. The crime rates as a whole are just across the board are up in Memphis and Shelby County and some of the surrounding areas. The Crime Commission's first quarter crime statistics, which are based on early numbers from the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, show a 7% increase in the city's major violent crime rate and a 43.8% increase in its major property crime rate compared to the first 3 months of 2022. The disturbing increases in reported crime are driven mainly by three categories: crimes committed with guns, crimes that are vehicular thefts, and vehicle break-ins. And we know that that's been a big thing around the Memphis and Shelby County area. Over 70% of reported violent incidents involve guns so far in the year of 2023. Today, we are going to talk to Mr. Royal Chatman, a no better person to talk about some of the things that are going on. He's in that arena where he talks to and deals with youth every day. He has a background that he is going to share with us, but just a little bit about him. Mr. Chatman is currently with the juvenile court system, and he works as a juvenile court and school coordinator with Memphis Allies, and he was a previous drug and gang prevention and interventionist consultant for the Shelby County school system. He was an auxiliary probation officer for the Shelby County Juvenile Court System, as well as a consultant for the Memphis Police Department, Shelby County Sheriff Department, and multi-agency gang unit, that's the MGU. Not to mention, he served as keynote speakers at many engagements hosted by the U.S. District Attorney, focusing on inmates who are re-entering back into the community. He also works with the U.S. District Attorney's Office on many facets associated with their federal re-entry program. I tell you, I've worked with this young man in some capacities in the past when I was with the school system, and I'm so honored that he's here today so that we can talk more about what's kind of going on with this uptick in crime, particularly as it relates to our youth. We want to really focus and hone in on that and see kind of what's going on, and are there any specific strategies that we might be able to implement to kind of move the needle of improvement as it relates to our youth. So glad to have him here with us in the chat room today. Hello, my friend. So glad to have you here today. How are you?
I am doing great. I'm doing fine. How you doing, Rhonda? It's good to be here.
Absolutely. So I've shared a little bit about you with our listening audience. I even shared that we kind of worked a little bit together, in the past, by way of Shelby County Schools and some of the work that you did with the gang intervention and prevention there. And there's so much more, like I tell the audience, there's so much more to say about you. And I didn't want to say that, all of that, because I kind of wanted to save it for part of our discussion. And so I think that's where I want to start, with your foundation and how you ended up here. Just give the audience a little bit about your background and how you landed in this work.
Yes. Well, personally, as I can say, since it is a background, as you spoke, and
Mm-hmm.
many have them and many don't,
Yeah.
I can say is sometimes it became the backbone of why I do what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So it is a background, but it's also the backbone of what I do and why I do, because I did have one of those backgrounds that many will be plagued with, or many will say it's haunting to have such a background. But there's amazing things you can do with your background, and my background was not something that I would want others to do right now. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes I take my background and I try to prevent others from going through the background that I had to, in the
Mm-hmm.
backdrop of my life.
Mm-hmm.
So personally, I'm pretty sure you said you shared with them what I'm doing now, but I want to presently say what got me to this role, what got me to this state, what got this passion coming up out of me, or why I want to see the youth and even like-minded adults turn from whatever curves that they're doing negative, and
Mm-hmm.
cause them to understand that those roads need not to be taken. And as well as some of us are beacons of light that's on those roads that they're on, to be able to help flash them to understand is somewhere where you're going, some of us already been. So actually, is I was incarcerated, and if they didn't know, if your audience will know now, I'm coming from a perspective of what do you do after incarceration? What do you do after your background was not as flourishable as many would like it to be? And so I took a standing point and said, is I'm going to let my background cause and deteriorate me from not being still productive and being progressive, as well as being purposeful. So what I did that's when we landed, and me and you met, where you found me when I just came out of my incarceration, because that incarceration inflicted upon me was many people would say that's an excuse, but no, it's my reality. It's a lot of things that went into my home that maybe people had in their home that I didn't. And should I have took those roles? Nah, never, but we did. And so that what landed me to finding myself no father in the home. Mother passed away with cancer, and I had decisions that I made that was not the right decisions that caused me to live in a lifestyle that many are navigating to now, that we would be talking about how many times we get gravitated to a lifestyle that seem like why are we in it? Why do we do certain things? But sometimes it's the trauma that sometimes hit our home, or the negativity that's in our home while we growing up, that causes us to negate to some of the options that's out there. And I chose some of them options. After dad didn't come home to bring me my identity, and mom passed away with cancer, there was a lot of other options out there, and I chose them. I did some things that I shouldn't have did. I sold some things I wasn't supposed to sell, and it caused me consequences in my life. Caused me consequences that I ended up being beat in the head with a hammer, 2x4, shot in the neck with a 9mm by my best friend,
Mm-hmm.
trying to rob me. But that comes with that type of territory. That comes with the lifestyle that I was living. That comes with the lifestyle where many should know that it's not going to be all glitter and glam. It's not going to be all diamonds. It's not going to be all, bling, bling, bling. So that happened to me. And then all of a sudden I had to realize that there's consequences to my choices.
Mm-hmm.
And that consequence of my choices of choosing to do what I did, of selling narcotics, and the time that I was selling them, it cost me to be incarcerated. And that incarceration came with a natural life sentence without the possibility of parole.
Wow.
So that there is my jumping point to let you know is that the history that was then and the history that I still had there was a history that I was able to come bring out here. And natural life without possibility of parole came 18 hard, strong years of incarceration, until one day I don't know, glad I'm here. One day I could say it seemed suitable and fit that he turned the tides and he touched the governor, and the governor chose to give somebody a pardon, and it was me.
Wow.
So I had two things I could do with that pardon. I could take that part and I could feel like, hey, man, I escaped the street. Hey, I made it through the streets. I made it to the penitentiary. Man, I got through the penitentiary. Now I'm back out on this block. I'm back on the street. I can go back around the guys. I can go back and do what I do. Nah, I said it's nah. It's time to change the block. It's time to change the neighborhood. It's time to change the conditioning of what we are growing up to do. So I brought that went in the school system, and I found myself now negating young students and individuals to turn away from lifestyles that caused us to gravitate from the hurt and the pain and the trauma that we all been hit with, and tried to say is somebody here that has already been where you're going want to come back and let you know it ain't worth going. So I did that, and I've been doing that. And to the fact is, I've been doing it so well that I'm so thankful that it allowed me many doors to open for me. A lot of doors that was closed on me, they was open. It was favorable openings. I got a lot of, if they knew the extent of my bio, some would have to shake their head. How is this possible? But sometimes possibilities is not in our hands. Favor is not in our hands. It's given to us. And I was given favor in certain areas that allowed my voice and allowed my gift and allowed my experience to come forth and to be exchangeable to some of these youth that are going down the same road. So that in a snippet, I know I said much. I get passionate about this. I get overwhelmed by my wording can't stop because it just flows from the inside of a river of wanting to see the change that I know we need to see right now in Memphis. And I know that it's a real need in Memphis for a lot of like me's or people that's been like me to come now, take a stand and say, yes, we got to do something with this. We got to get a hand on this, because a lot of us got the experience of where they're going, but we got to come up and we got to find ourselves in position where we got to be able to educate them and understand that, hey, we got to go mentor them. We got to go show them. We got to go get discipleship. We got to go show them some discipline on how to walk these life and these negative choices. So hopefully that answered you much.
So you were given a life sentence without the possibility of parole.
It's natural life, Brian. I'm sorry, I got to correct it. It was called natural life. Natural life is the extent where you're supposed to die in prison.
Wow. So, and then the governor pardoned you. Walk us through that. Like, what was that like? I mean, did you see that coming, or it just boom, it happened? Or walk us through that.
First, I can say this. The natural life without possible parole, you don't see it coming on the end, because the judge told me in that courtroom, when all my breath leave my body, we'll let you go. But I remind myself telling the judge, I say, Judge, it's my first offense, my only offense. I never had a juvenile record, never had a misdemeanor, and it was a nonviolent crime. So I had to ask him, I say, all my breath.
I'm sorry, what specifically was the crime, just so our audience knows?
It was distributing cocaine. And it was a thing called in that day and time, mandatory minimum. So it wasn't about the character of the person, it was about the amount the person had. So with that amount that I had, it was called mandatory minimums, which so many people were against at the time, because they was feeling like the judges don't have no say so. The character can't be brought into this courtroom. And so judges got to just sentence them according to what they had. And that was mostly what happened to me. So that natural life sentence was on the books. And it was me at 15, 16 years in prison, finding out I'm finna die in there. But one and behold, sometimes we make changes, and we know the changes we need to be made, not from somebody else, but we got to make them ourselves. So I had to be able to start talking to the one that's in me and say, hey, you're not finna die here. You're going to get out of here. So you're not going to come back here, and you're going to prevent others from coming here. I had to say that for 2 years, until on the 18th year, I get a knock on my cell, and this dog say, counselor need to see you. And now, mind you, I ain't ready to see no counselor, because ain't no news to me. But then all of a sudden, the counselor at my door, he rapidly knocked and said, you get my message? Yeah, I got your message. He said, come on from Mr. Chatman. That's where he made his very great mistake. He called me Mr. And I was like, whoa, did he put a Mr. in front of my name?
That's different, yeah.
It's totally different, Rhonda. You know, man has been incarcerated for 18 years when you even told him that he programmed to know my last name, my number, my last name, my number. So now you tell me, come to your office, Mr. Chatman. So I knew it was something different here. And when I got to his office, he said, congratulations. I said, man, what's going on? He said, you're going home. Obviously, the governor was already looking at the mandatory minimums, and they've been getting a lot of flack about, hey, these sentences are too harsh. And so fortunately, before she left office, she chose to do some pardonings.
Yeah. That's awesome. So, you know, you and I, when we met, we were working with, I was actually working with middle schools and children that may have been involved in gangs or at risk for
Right.
becoming involved in that lifestyle. Um, and you, the work that you did, and I've seen, I call it a skit. I don't know really what it's called, but I've seen where you pretty much relived your life in front of the youth. And it's so real.
Right.
And everybody, if the only people that don't know it's real, the only people that know it's real are the people that have seen you do it. If you've
Right.
never seen it and you see it, you think it's actually happening to you. Where did you come up with that? Like what prompted that for you to make do that? I call it a simulation. Where did that come from?
Right. Well, first, let me tell you, I got to give much credit to us that's on the team that did that. But it was called the crime scene presentation.
Okay.
What it is we have already came to our understanding is that sometimes they don't get it until they see it. A
Mm,
lot of times you can speak unto children, you can speak unto them, and you can tell them all day what not to do and what they shouldn't do. But until they get a visual of what you're trying to keep and prevent them from. So
mhm,
what that did was called a crime scene presentation, started from a symposium that we did over at, I believe it was Whitehaven, when we was
mhm,
having a symposium there. And then one time we came up and the unit came up and say, we don't do a crime scene presentation. We're going to bring the reality to them. We're going to let them see the blue lights that have to be on the streets. But then they was going to put a dummy in it, and just me, and you talk about the body bag scene, where
mhm,
we come on the scene, there's money all around, and there's bullet trajectories all around, and there's a big body bag sitting in the middle of the street, and somebody's in that body bag, and all of this stuff, but their mind is focused on all the stuff, and they not understanding it's a person inside of that body bag.
mhm.
So that scene, we made the reality is that it's not good to put a dummy in. How
Yeah.
about bring somebody that's already been to death back to life? How
Mhm,
about somebody that had a lifestyle that was living a life that they glamorizing? And so
mhm,
why they came up and said is the person that come out this bag going to be able to have experience about the streets they running out, going to
mhm,
have experience about the prison that they might end up in, but also going to have experience about somebody trying to take their life. And
mhm,
that's when it came up that I'm going to come up out of that bag and I'm going to give them that understanding that this is death coming back and speaking life to a lot of y'all. You don't want to give your mother that blue light special. So that's where that whole scene, in which I'm believing you talking about the crimes, and it's been requested amongst all the schools, it's been requested amongst churches, it's been requested amongst many people, which all bring that presentation to us. And when we leave, it's a lot of wet eyes in the audience. It's a
yep,
lot of hearts turned, but
yep.
it's a lot of kids that's like appreciative that we brought a reality before they had to go to.
Mhm. We're gonna talk more about we're about to go to break. We're gonna talk more about the work that you do, but the main reason, my objective of having you here, is because there's been this uptick in crime in Memphis and Shelby County and some of the surrounding areas, and much of that is aligned with our youth juvenile crimes, and we want to talk about, like, why do you think that is, and what direction should we be moving in to make a change, to prompt, some change. We're up on, voting for new leaders and all of that. Like, well, what are we going to do to see some change? We're going to talk about that when we come back from break. We'll be right back on 94.7 FM in just a moment.
Yes, ma'am.
And we're back on 94.7 FM. We are here with Mr. Roll Chatman. He has given us a little bit about his background and his life and how he's landed in the work that he's in today. I shared with you that there has been an uptick in crime. The number of delinquent charges against juveniles in Memphis and Shelby County, according to the Memphis and Shelby County Crime Commission, increased 30.3% from the year in 2022 from the year before. Why are we seeing these uptick in crimes? And they're usually gun related, related to vehicles, vehicular break-ins and so forth. I mean, like that's been a big thing. I know so many people that have had their cars hit, right? And I mean, family members, friends, whatever, like people are afraid to go. Not in just certain, not particular areas. I mean, it's everywhere.
Mhm.
Like what is this about?
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure that they know I'm a very articulate person when I speak, but sometimes you got to be very candid when you speak too.
Sure.
I'm gonna speak on some things too. Is why the uptick? Where's the uptick come from? It ain't like it came out of the blue.
No.
It ain't like it just happened yesterday. This thing was coming on us for the longest. It was showing itself way back in 21, 20, 22. It was showing itself that we finna get in, we finna have a storm.
Mm.
And the storm should have been addressed a lot sooner.
Mm-hmm.
Now the storm is storming, and the only thing
Mm-hmm.
we wanted to do is try to put an umbrella up and try to keep not getting wet as we could.
Yeah.
What do I mean by that? I told them mechanic. We didn't allow a lot of things to happen and change that allow our youth to have more access to things
Mm-hmm.
that's causing them to be able to commit crimes that they commit.
Mm-hmm.
What I say is, okay, let's look at it. Now you can put a gun in a person's hand at a certain age,
Mm-hmm.
and they can go out and illegally possess that thing.
Mm-hmm.
They want that thing, but you have still not addressed a lot of the issues that some of them have when they have in conflict with one another, when they have issues, when they still gang banging and this, that, and another. But yet you say, hey, they legally possess something, but the same thing they possessing is killing instruments.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I mean by that, I ain't against nobody that's doing. I'm just saying is this storm was coming and now it's here.
Mm-hmm.
Now you put uptick in carjackings. Now more guns is being pushed in the face of people. Now, don't get me wrong. A lot of these guns is not sold legally. A lot of them they going into your car. They trying to find them.
Yeah,
So a
yeah.
lot of us putting them in our cars. And while they're in your cars, them kids know they're in your cars. And they know they got to get a hold to one. And
Mm-hmm.
a lot of times is a lot of the carjacks and these break-ins for these cars is because they're trying to get something out of that car that they believe is in that car. Why? Because everybody around here, they get to carry a gun. It's legally. So they know it's legally carrying your gun into the buildings or something like this. So where's that gun at? It's in your car. So that's why your car is targeted for getting broke into or carjacking, whatever this things is going on, because the storm is here.
Mm-hmm.
They're here and they're doing what they're doing. Now I can be honest with this is not the blame of the children to the fact is that it's their fault. It's the fact that some of us know that our educational needs and purposes have to stop being siloed. We're siloed. We're trying to attack the elephant as we look like we little hyenas. You ain't gonna get that elephant to go nowhere. We gotta come together. We gotta impact this thing. This is a big thing that's going on. You got a lot of youth crime. You got a lot of them that's underage, and you got a lot of them that's doing some heinous crimes. We got it, but we still gotta understand that this thing can't be approached by one single approach that is going to be fixed. It's going to fix it. You got to get a hand-to-hand approach with everybody in this community. Like every type of resource and every type of, sometimes we come to the table to see what we can get off the table. Most time we come together, and when the big grants come down or grants, everybody going to see what's their portion.
Now you preaching, and this silo thing, it's such an issue for me. Like that's the focus. Like, where can I get the money for my program? And if the mission and the vision was truly about mobilizing our communities, it'd be where can I get this money, and then who can I work with, and who can we pool, which of us can come together and pool our resources to to make an impact, a positive impact on the community. And don't even get me started about the churches, because I go to church every Sunday. I love the church, but we've got work to do.
Got it. We got it. Because if we say we've been working for who and for what?
Yeah.
Because the cause is still out there. The problems are still occurring. So
Mm-hmm.
we putting in work. I like to say where the work is being put in. We are coming together now as more than probably before, because eyes are on the way we come together now. I'm sorry to say, it takes sometimes for us to really realize how detrimental we are in a need of help. It's coming at the cost of our youth. It's coming at the cost of a 9-month-old baby being shot. It's coming at the cost of a 3-year-old baby getting shot. It's coming at the cost also youth losing their lives at the sporadic moment on Channel 5, 3, 13, and 24. It's coming at a sporadic mood that they're getting locked up in the same sequence, but then it's coming at a sporadic mood that now is a change that, hey, maybe the locking up is not enough because they're getting locked up, but then they back out. So it's a lot of storms here. And we all are trying to race to ramificate what need to be done. You already know what. We got to come back together, and we got to be put all of our bags on the table and all of our access on the table. And what I see is that now we got to not look at what we can get off the table. It's time what we can bring to the table.
What can we bring?
And it's not money all the time. Resources, not it's a need, but you got to bring some of your talent. You got to bring some of your skills.
Yeah, that's right. Resources don't just mean finances.
You got to bring more than just talking about what's on the table for you to get your program out there to work. You got to come to the table and empty your bag on the table and see what do you have in your bag and what if he have in her bag, what she got in her bag, and how we bring all these things together to make the impact change for me. Everything I see when this thing come down, everybody go to the table and they get the PowerPoint, this PowerPoint. And then when they not don't and then you're in the room, everybody can't get along with everybody. So what type of impact you gonna make if the house divided against each other and you can't stand that when they can't stand that? Don't you know the kids already see that? So if they see you and get together, why are you telling them to get together? So it's a lot of things we all can do as a whole to get our points across. And that is first coming together.
So here's the other thing. And I know one of the OJJDP administrators talked about how do we avoid youth having unnecessary contact with the juvenile justice system, right? And there's a lot about that concept that I agree with. I mean, you got some that probably need to be in the system. I mean, let's just be real about that. But there are other kids like such as yourself, right? You did that one thing that you got caught up and you ended up doing prison time, but you didn't even have a record before then. And then you came with the traumas of a mom that died of cancer, not having a father, you know, in your life or whatever. And our kids do come with so much. And so I'm saying, like, you know, what can we do about meeting them where they are? Those kids that you probably can reroute. You know, what are we doing for them? What can we do for them? I mean, because it's a lot of kids, I would imagine, out here breaking in cars and never did anything like that, just trying to fit in, you know?
Yeah, I like what you started and you said at the right point is that, and I'm gonna be honest, you got quite great individuals that's going in the right direction to see how to address those situations that's going on. This call is one great one where I come in particular, I could say right now, Miss Althea Stewart and Charlie Caswell. I like the it's not what are you doing, it's what happened to you. You see what I'm saying?
The trauma.
Because your trauma, those ACEs, is driving, so to say, your activity. And I like the point is you got to see what's the drive behind the activity. What's the derivative that you're picking up the gun? What's the derivative that you're out here feeling unloved? What's the derivative that you feel like you got to be part of something like that? Once you get to that derivative, which is meaning that the fact is where your trauma lies, sometimes all of your crime is being activated. And some of your actions is being took out on. What you missed there, you're trying to replace here. So the first thing is it's great individuals that's out there doing the work and putting the foots on the ground and got positions. I love the one thing, and I don't toot nobody horns, but I like when I see a person doing the work, speaking the work, and acting upon the work, and now sitting before people that come from almost like a past the mind, and all of a sudden now you are a political voice to help the change. And when you bring that to the table and you use that resource and you don't cease from using that resource, when you come from a change and you continue to consist to promote change and then be a voice for the change, that's what you do. So I believe our children is looking for an out. I really do. And you can get that on blast. Our children are looking for an out. These individuals ain't looking to run up and go into prison. Let's remind it, they're still children. They
Mm-hmm.
still know the left from the right. But then when they being brought up with all this social media, they're being brought up with this music, they're being brought up with all of these lyrics in their ear that's causing negatively results. Then guess what? They ain't even trained. They know how to tie their shoe from their left to the right. But now they putting all these other sources in them. So what it is the polishing is you gotta get that canvas to the point of how do I underskirt a lot of this trauma or things that's happened to you to be able to place inside of you a better understanding of why you are important. What's the value that sits inside of you? I mean, don't look at the value inside of me. What value, young lady, still resides inside of you?
Mm-hmm.
So yes, you're gonna have an uptick and an uptick, but you got a lot of people that overcome upticks that needs to be out there up front. They need to be the forefront. They need to be standing out. And I'm talking about some of your politicians, some of your people that wear uniforms. So people that have already changed to come bring the change to those that make them see it possible.
So I'm glad you said that because I was just about to say you mentioned, the when you talk about resources and you were saying we need to bring our talents and we need to bring all these other things to the table, right? How important is it that we have more people like, because the thing is, most of the time we don't see a lot of Royal Chatmans. We don't see a lot of people that go through something like this and then they can get out and have a job, especially have their own organization, right? I mean, that's a blessing within itself. Most of the time, when people have done time, done hard time, and all of that, they're looked upon as a no hire, right? So, don't you think it's important that we have other Royal Chatmans working with our youth? As opposed to turning these people away, those are the kind of talents that we need. People that have done the time, whether it's being incarcerated or whether it was just living the life, but they've changed. They're down a new path. Don't we need more of that?
And we do, Rhonda. They're here. They're here. I mean, I didn't blast a lot of the organizations out, but I know the one that I'm specifically working with now, Memphis Allies, which is a great organization that was brought up through youth villages. It was the
Mm-hmm.
umbrella to this
Mm-hmm.
great initiative that our gun violence needs to be reduced, and
Mm-hmm.
we reduce it. But you can't. What I love about the CEO of this company is he knew that as he was running youth villages, that he had to go out and research first. Sometimes people put a program together and all you got is a program. You're trying to get pro and you're trying to put it with a gram and you're trying to come. You
Mm-hmm.
ain't gonna get it. So the program is a program. But what happens is you got to have the right people to implement the program and then the right audience to take the program too. So what
Mm-hmm.
he is he initially took himself around and they took some people around to Chicago, learned out what's going on with the gun violence over there in Chicago, what's going on in Stockton, California, what's going on in Washington, what's these hot spots.
Mm-hmm.
Learned from those for a year and then came back and didn't try to bring their programs, but he had to put a program together that fits Memphis because
That fits Memphis.
Memphis is an animal of itself.
It
So
is.
what did he say? Hey, let's do this. You got to get grassroots organizations that's already working within the community that already have an understanding and an outreach to these individuals that need to be touched. We have to go get them. And then guess what? Allow them to connect with this community, connect with their resource. And you can't go get no ordinary Joes. You got to go get some
Mm-hmm.
of the oil.
Mm-hmm.
You got to go
Mm-hmm.
get some of the trails. You got to go get some of the dots. You got to go get some of the ones that's been fabricated in these
Mm-hmm.
that changed their life. You got to go get the DeAndre Browns. You got to go get those that have been, you got to go get those that are working the resource. You got to go get some of those that's been already known for being one way and then taking and showing a change life another way and bring them and empower them that they can reach into that community and bring some out. And then you can't just leave them like that. You got to get some life coach. You got to get some life coaches in there. You got to get some case management going on because you got to get
A multidisciplinary team. Yeah.
got to. You got to. So what happened is you do got some other oils and all these other great individuals out here doing the work. But it's just that the fact is some things get underskirted or get underseen because of the violent nature of what's taking course in Memphis. Sometimes it's hard to see that work or the help or
Mm-hmm.
the impact of change because the violent nature that
Mm-hmm.
we're dealing with now in Memphis, which is being gun violence in its fullest,
Mm-hmm.
has almost overshadow and overpower the help that is coming or the help that is here. And I just want to first speak on that. You have a lot of individuals that's in Memphis that has a change, positive structure and posture in neighborhoods, and their voices got to be heard too. You got to empower them. You can, one thing I like about it, say, if you too top heavy, you're gonna tip over.
Mm.
You got to start working with these bottom down. You can't be seen from the top head because you didn't cause the change. That change is being called from your undergird. It's from the ones that's in the trenches, those are the ones in the roots. And then, but guess what? When all the dollars come down, it always go from top to bottom.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
needs to understand they got to reach to the bottom so it can rise to the top, so it can deal with the situation that's going on in the
Mm-hmm.
community.
And speaking of community, I want to talk about your thoughts on community policing and how we bridge the gap between law enforcement, because I know you work closely with law enforcement. How do we bridge the gap between community and law enforcement? Um, you know, what kind of programs do we need for our youth that like I said, our at-risk youth that could possibly end up being a part of the system, but again, they don't have any violent crimes. What kind of programs? See, I know a lot of these programs, like you said, you just want to say you got programs, but how well are they being implemented? Are they being implemented with fidelity? In the sense that they're really working with the kids. Because, when we were in the school system, we had diversion programs, we had all of these things, but yet our youth was still struggling. Let's talk about that when we come back from break. We'll be right back in a moment on 94.7 FM on Doctor2Doctor in the chat room. So Royal, as we're talking about some of the things that are going on with our youth, what kinds of things can we do to bridge that gap between law enforcement and the community? What are your thoughts on community policing? Do we go back to that? In this era in which law enforcement is frowned upon in so many ways. We've got a lot of Black and brown people that are being killed by police. Like, where do we go with that?
Well, first, I'm gonna just say it is I like the fact that what he's done in my life, he allowed me to come from my negative, my wrong, my bad,
Mm-hmm.
and then he allowed me to start walking to turn and start working towards my perfection, my good, my understanding. And what happens is the one thing he did with me, he sat me in the middle of that thing. See, so law enforcement can't say I ain't over here, community can't say I'm over here. He set me in the middle of that thing. I'm a clergy for the law enforcement and whatever. I'm a clergy because I got to show up when somebody passed away, something like that. But yet and still, I got on the clergy department for one reason, to be a voice for him, to be able to help bridge that gap between community and law enforcement. Because when law enforcement is trying to say something, community ain't going to hear it because something right. And when community is trying to say something, law enforcement ain't gonna hear because of something. So what you do is he had to put something in the center of that thing. So I'm so thankful for the clergy departments that's inside of any other department that be able to help bridge. And I'm hoping they doing their part of meaning not being biased and not being one-sided, but getting that thing, because sometimes you want to show yourself when it's good, but then when something get heated, you got to be there for the good, bad, and indifferent. So just up on that perspective is yes, I believe that the community policing and all this, I believe the community should never stop. I believe the community should be consistent, the village. I believe they should go back to the understanding is take away the frown upon my law. No, I think you need to be the village again. So if you need a better name for it, instead of community policing, I think we should say become the village again. That's my perspective of this whole thing. Because if you all gonna sit there biting, bitting back about community, we could do it on no, that's long, but no, you bring the village back. Where my village people at? You know what I'm saying? And I ain't talking about them ones that dressed up like Tonto and all them. I'm talking about being a true village of a community. Knowing every child in that community needs a support system to look to and look up to. So if you really want to know about all the rhetoric about community policing, I think we need to become back the village, be the village and understand that that village needs each and every one of us to be able to know what's right is right and what's wrong is wrong. Stand for what's right, and we always go against what's wrong. And if there's others doing wrong, then we got to be able to put that pamper somewhere, and we got to deal with that pamper.
Yeah.
Y'all, I'm just keeping it in clean term. We
Yeah.
need to deal with that pamper. Because what happens is they say you spare that rod, the fuse gonna keep running off on the wrong way. So it's a way to operate and do things decent and in order. And so in order to get this thing right, probably in Memphis, we got to become a village again. Not all that back and by, your fault, his fault, her fault. Because yes, I can't be honest, is out of the sporadic deaths that happen and occur, but yet and still look at all of the crime we doing to each other. But we want everybody to look at, hey, they did this to us sporadically, and still we doing it to each other every second. But no outcry, no outpour. It's all right for us to kill each other. It's not all right for one person out of a sporadic moment to do it, whether they was in a badge or whether they was a difficult. I'm tired of that. I'm tired of us to start looking at the real matter. We got to stop the black on black crime. We got to stop the crime in itself as a whole. And we got to get back to being a village. And we got to call this stuff out. We got to know, hey, if you in this community, young man, we got to start being able to hold you accountable. Man, you better get that right. And get that village back to where it need to be. So I think that's an addressment that only we can do as a whole. And too many of us, I'm not gonna call us old because I don't want your talk show to get mad at radio talk. I want them to I want us seasoned folk to use our seasoning well. Seasoned folk know how to think. Seasoned folk know how to act. I think it's time for us to spread that seasoning around to get this village back to what it needs to be.
You mentioned Charlie Caswell earlier, and one of the things that I feel he does well, really, really well, is using a wraparound approach. In that, when you take a peek into the initiatives that he has, he's dealing with the whole family. He's not just dealing with the child, and he's not just dealing with the child's, I'll call it, misbehavior. He's digging into those ACEs and what happened and not what's wrong. He's doing that first, and then if there are any medical needs, he can align them with the resources to get help in that way. If mom or dad needs help in some way, he's helping. If the siblings need something, so it's this whole wraparound approach that's not just words and not just on paper. It's what he's actually doing and implementing. That's what I meant when I said implementing things with fidelity. We have great ideas, but are we really implementing them? And are we implementing them with fidelity? So shout out to Mr. Caswell for the work that he does. But what are some programs that you think would be impactful in addressing the uptick in our youth crimes and gun violence?
Well, first, I'm gonna say Memphis Allies. Memphis Allies is gonna be the first one.
Okay.
First one on that menu.
Memphis Allies, and what do they specifically do? I mean, like, walk us through something that they do. Give us a scenario.
Well, Memphis Allies is ordinary too. Memphis Allies is the name, but the model that we use, the model that is used by Memphis Allies, is called Switch. That is the model, and that Switch was standing for support with the intent to create hope. We came up with that initiative because we knew that the gun are now being transformed from regular guns, semi-automatics, to fully auto, and they use a switch to do that. They take a switch to put on a gun, but that switch calls them now federal time too. So with the concept of Memphis Allies, it took the Switch initiative, and the Switch initiative was like, it was the model that we used to go out to support with the intent to create hope, in which I shared with you. That's when we have the outreach specialists that can reach those type of individuals in their neighborhoods because they got connections and understanding with those type, and then they can bring them along, and then a life coach can get involved in their life to help them now do some life plannings and get them, you're missing your GED, let's get some work going on, what you need
Mhm.
And then you can't do all that without getting a case management involved because the home needs something that you might be in the street trying to get. So you got to get the case management involved and see what's going on in the home. But then all of a sudden, you got to go ahead and get that clinical specialist there, deal with that trauma that's going on.
Mm. Mhm.
So Memphis Alliance is a great initiative that's only been started like 2 years ago, and it's been great. It's been working, and it's what we do. We get referrals. We deal with the juvenile court system. We got switch youth and switch adults. Switch youth deal with 18 and under. Switch adults deal with 18-35 because sometimes we missing sometimes spaces when people just deal with only their youth and they
Mhm.
some adults that may be influencing to them or may have got slipped through the crack and still
Mhm.
need services too. And then some people is listening to the adults and they're not touching those youth. But
Mhm.
switch Memphis Allies, we deal with both grade aspects, but then there's all the other things that comes along with that. So Memphis Allies, I believe, is a great initiative program that's been working in our community, as well as I'm not going to lie. You got all of a sudden, you got all these other ones. You got Young Man University, you got 901 Block out there, you got here you got a lot of other organizations
Mhm.
doing the work. You got DeAndre Brown on there with Lifeline to Success. You got all these, you got over in the Orange Mountain, you got the great man Renardo Baker that had
Mhm.
I Should Live and Not Die. You got all these other resources out there. Neighborhood Christian centers out there doing their things. You say you got all these areas and people that's working to work. And I'm sorry if I misnamed some of them or didn't
Yeah.
name them, but it's
Mhm.
not to say you got so many that I've seen and I worked with before that I want to make sure that it's known that there's organizations out there doing the work, but at times that work has a lot of shadow over it because of all the violence that has been sparking throughout our community.
Mhm. I agree with that. Yeah, it's not that it's not work being done, it's just overshadowed by the violence. But I mean, as you said, it's everybody's responsibility. Like we can't blame the police department, right? We can't blame, you know what I mean? We just can't point fingers at one. We got to figure out how to come together as a community and with the whole mindset that is everybody's responsibility. Let's talk about our schools. Um, Resource officers in the schools. That's been a big thing. I do a lot of work with that currently.
Mhm.
How do you feel about resource officers in the school? And if they are, what would you say their role should be? Because, well, I won't say because. How do you feel?
I'm glad you asked that question because just recently, last week, I just came from over there training school resource officers over there.
Mm. Mhm.
And I can tell you, we had a grand time. What I
Mm.
mean by that is because many of them I remember when I was doing my thing in the game thing, but then
Mhm.
some I remember when they go through the academy and then they got to be trained to go into the school, whether they're going to be resource officers, going to be officers on the street. They go through a training that we does. And what happened when I'm glad you asked about that. What do I think about the school resource officer? They need it. They are needed.
Mhm.
They are needed.
Mhm.
Why am I saying that is because we have already seen the uptick we talking about. We done seen elementary boys
Mhm.
or girl or anybody
Mhm.
guns in the school.
Mhm.
Whenever it got that drastic, that you got elementaries having shootings, not by somebody on coming in, by those that go to the school. The school resource officers are needed. They need it because there's two things that need to be approached on this thing. Is one, they needed to protect the little ones that goes to the school and be able to be resource, not looked at as they don't need to be. No, you need them. They need to
Mhm.
be there. The
Mhm.
other thing right there about training is too is that they got to continue to be. I don't know. They know it. I said it to them. When I went and did my training, when I rubbed elbows with a lot of them that I used to know. Hey, everybody say hello. Okay. But then I had to ask, hey, what school you going to? I don't know yet. Okay. When I found out, when I got up, I told them, I said, oh, y'all confused. What I found out is sometimes they have to be refreshed. They need to be renewed. What I mean by that is sometimes a water softener, I found out the good thing about a water softener. I used to hate hard water.
Mhm.
Man, I get in the shower and before I get out, I'm itching and dry, everything.
Mhm.
That
Mhm.
hard. But when I got a water softener, everything was fine. And I found out something about the water softener. Every night when I'm asleep, it's rejuvenating itself. It's renewing. And that's the same thing when I'm asking what school you're going to go to. Okay, you have whatever went on that school. don't need to be took to that school.
Mhm.
So what it is, they got to go through a renewing process, refresh, renew, get get time to just continue to get your training, because you got to continue to take now in that other school, not whatever. And you can't be too comfortable with that school and get ready for the challenge of this school. So I had to let them know is that somewhere along the line, they are needed. There's purpose. They're always needed for the purpose, but they got to consistently know after you go through it so long with something, you got to constantly get renewed and rejuvenate and refresh yourself to go for the next task.
So you talked about their training, and that's what my most of my concern is, because you and I have already talked about like what Memphis Allies and what they do.
Mhm.
Talked about Charlie Caswell and what he does. Then, you know, when you think about a school, again, these kids are coming to school,
Mhm.
and they're coming to school with their trauma.
Mhm.
And one that may act out at school, um, the school resource officer can't be trained just for the protection of the school, but they have to understand how to meet the kid, or I hate kid, the child, where he or she is, right? So I think, and then we talked about bridging the gap between the community and law enforcement. So
Mhm.
then there's this gap that has to be bridged between the school resource officer, who has a law enforcement mindset, and the school staff, who has an academic mindset. There's a
Mhm.
gap there. I've been a teacher,
Mhm.
and I just know I want every kid in my classroom acting the way they're supposed to act so I can teach my lessons, right? And we all have to understand that whole concept of trauma and what children come with. So I just personally feel like there needs to be trainings where everybody, like you said, is at the table together with
Mhm.
all their various roles and what they do, and having conversations about what happens when little Johnny does this, what happens from the teacher's perspective, what happens from the principal or the school's perspective, what happens from the school resource officers
Mhm.
perspective, because our goal should be to also again protect them from going into the system if they don't have to, right? So we need more diversion programs. We need more restorative practices, programs within our schools, and that kind of stuff that's being taught within communities and in these nonprofit organizations, having these kinds of trainings,
Mhm. Mhm.
for our youth too. I mean, let's just face it, when I was in school and you were in school, it was that village perspective.
Mhm.
You did have, even if, I know kids that I might have gone to school with may have been living with their grandparents, but teachers kind of took on the parent role, and
Right.
everybody, it was that village
Mhm.
mindset. We've gotten away from that. And
Mhm.
so now we have to come back to thinking about um, a village. And as you said, a village. And how do we all come together to make it work? Because just having a school resource officer in the school is just not enough. That one thing isn't enough.
Well, you said you hit on that because you brought to my attention two is when I was telling you about the resource officers. There was 2 points that drove, and we do drive, and I like what you just brought me back to my attention. The one is the protecting and making sure that
Mm-hmm,
everything.
mm-hmm,
But the other one is like you said, is you have to, and that's what we train them to, is you have to build relationships with these individuals in these schools. Your one side can't be just all about strict suppression and strict
mm-hmm,
you
mm-hmm.
have to have that side that's
That's what I'm
relatable
talking
to
about.
this individual. So
Mm-hmm.
we do that type of training with them too. Is just okay, you got your suppression side, you got your profession side, you got your skilled side, but where's that? Where's that relatable side? Where's that relationship side that can help build relationship inside the relationship of that child that's going astray or that student that's going wrong? You gotta still be able to relate. You gotta be able to relation. You got once you build a relationship with them, and they can feel and understand that you relatable. You
Mm-hmm.
can a lot of the stuff that you do, and it may be a hard time to do, become at ease. Why? Because you got to be your relationship level got to be just as great as your professional level. Now,
Mm-hmm.
the personal thing is, I ain't telling you to be not unprofessional in your thing, your policy procedures, keep
Mm-hmm.
those. But you
Mm-hmm.
also got to have that relatable side, that relationship side, that it can be able to build on those individuals and build trust within those individuals. And those students finding that they feel safe, they feel protected, but they also feel that they related. And they guess that there is just not but they have
Mm-hmm.
something that can relate and also there to do the job well. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the 2 point. You gotta be able to do with that as far as to train, but you gotta have that relationship side.
Mm-hmm. And when it comes to those relationships, some officers just do it so naturally. It just comes. It's who they wake up as every day. They naturally build those relationships with the children. I've seen that happen. And there are others, and I think that's based on the selection process, like how an SRO got in a school. Like, did somebody make them go? Did they, were they on the verge of retirement and somebody just sent them to a school, right? Or was this somebody that was selected for all the right reasons to go work with children? And those are the ones that you just see naturally building those relationships. They're in the hallways, they're talking to the children. They're not standoffish, right? They're approachable. So before you go, because we're at a close, before you go, are there any final thoughts that you want to have for our youth? Any thoughts for people that are working in the capacity that you're working with? Any final thoughts before we leave?
Final thoughts. Final thoughts is we on a countdown. We're at a tick down. Young man, young lady, if you hear this in my voice, if you hear the sound of my voice, and if you have an ear to hear, I hope you got a heart to receive. My goal is that you understand how valuable you are outside of losing that value. How much purpose is still inside of each individual out there that may be even caught up in something negative. I came from that walk. I know that talk. I used to be in that lingo that all my negative I was doing. Never thought and had a vision of this positive that you see in me today. So I want that individual to know that they have so much purpose and potential to live for. And I know it may not seem right now, but if you give it time and get the right resources and around the right crowds and the right individuals, you'll see that a lot of the things that you were doing and the things that you were following is finding out and getting a lot of people in very predicaments that you do not want. So young folk, if you hear my voice, if you hear my sound, that you have potential that needs to be fully lived to its fullest and its potential. And the moment that you feel like that you need help, ask for it, or not only ask for it, seek it, and you
Mm-hmm.
shall find. So ask for the young folk. But to us older folk, as I close, I want to tell you this. We need to get uncomfortable to be comfortable. Sometimes we sitting down too much and we want to see others do it. And we want our community to be so well. And want to wonder about why this happened to all of you. Did you see? Well, let me tell you something. Sometimes you got to get uncomfortable to be comfortable. That means getting off your chair when they having a meeting or coming to that room. That means when they having a town hall meeting over there, go over there and see what it. That means stop sitting from the corner of your couch complain about everything going on in your community and not getting out to some of those polls and getting out to some of those things that can change the same trajectory of what others are out there doing. So get uncomfortable. Get on, sometimes get off your squat and get on up and let's get out there and do something we gotta do. That being said, is me from my side is I'm gonna keep doing what I'm doing. I'm not gonna hold nobody accountable. I gotta hold me accountable. And
Yeah.
I gotta hold me accountable for what I do. My purpose is in what I'm doing. I thank him that he allowed me to life still. I thank him that he allowed me to write 3 books and curriculums to him. I thank him that he allowed my life to be an example to so many that they could see that you can change from one thing to become something better and different. And I know that he didn't let me free to go do me again. He didn't get me out of
Mm-hmm.
prison. He didn't bring me out of basements for me to be the better as I can be. I know there's somebody on my assignment. I want y'all to hear me, young folk. Some of y'all, I got this Saturday, we got the PAL thing. You said about the sports thing,
Mm-hmm.
crazy. They got the big summer PAL summit going on, and I'm supposed to be a speaker out there. I don't know who on my assignment there, but I'm going to seek them out. I'm going to seek her out to be able
Mm-hmm.
to share something because if you're on my assignment, I got to let you know that you have more purpose and potential than losing on the streets of Memphis, either being dead or locked up in some new juvenile facility
Mm-hmm.
or correctional facility. So that being said, if you come across my voice in any type of crowd,
Mhm.
I'm gonna finish my assignment. If you my assignment, I got you.
I love it. And I love it that sometimes we got to get uncomfortable to get comfortable. I'm so glad that you were here to share this hour with me. And always say thank you to our listening audience for coming back every Saturday. And we ask that you come back next Saturday, same chat channel, same chat time, right here on Doctor to Doctor in the chat room on 94.7 FM. We will see you then.